Perfect. So yes, objectives today, understanding what factors contribute to better making or better meeting those expectations for your guests, properly setting up your Airbnb messenger tools for automation, and then outlining those 8 points of communication so that you are actually making sure that you are keeping a good line of communication open for your guests, not to even have the opportunity to make a negative review for you and your listing. So the main piece that we need to understand, right, immediately off bat, negative reviews happen when there is a misalignment between what the guest expects upon arrival and the experience that they actually receive. Meaning that I expected to walk into something and it's like, your pictures are really bright, they're open, they're airy, it's clean in here, it looks clean, but I get there and it's like, it's not, it looks nothing like how it looked in the pictures, or it isn't giving me the feel that the pictures gave. Or let's say, for instance, using Tina's example from earlier, it's like, well, you told me you got a grill and I can grill, but I get there and it's like, I don't know, the grill's dirty, or I don't have anything to actually grill with. That is a misalignment between expectations, and that now creates the opportunity for them to say something within a negative review, saying, okay, this did not meet my expectations. That is typically when negative reviews happen. So this is why we focus so much on actually making sure that we put a lot of detail into our listing so that they know what they will expect. And even furthermore, we keep that open line of communication so that we can avoid negative reviews, because reviews are really what your business is, like the backbone of your business. This is how people are going to look and say, okay, do I want to book? Do I not? You all, even with what Shona was just mentioning, right? Shauna was just mentioning about, okay, if I'm looking at reviews for this apartment complex, you want to know what you can go in expecting, right? What can I expect? And that's what the reviews are going to tell you. So this is why we focus again also on getting to that point of getting those 3 first bookings to get to the point of having a review, so that it can speak more to your credibility as a host, your credibility with the listing. What happens when people don't really read the listing? How do we mitigate for that? And that's going to be within your communication. We're going to talk about it in the messages. So this is why we send those 8 different messages, and you're asking for confirmation in some of these messages. At the end of it, you're saying, does this make sense? And if they just don't say whether or not it makes sense, you know that they are not reading what you're sending over to them. So this is why we also reiterate in some of these messages, please make sure you have thoroughly read the listing details prior to arriving, so you know exactly what to expect. Okay, so better managing the expectations really comes down to just your communication. So you need to make sure that not only are you communicating when they get into your listing, but you're communicating before they book, meaning that you actually know what your guest needs and you're anticipating that, right? You're asking them, hey, what are you coming into town for? Are you coming for a special occasion? Are you celebrating an anniversary? Are you celebrating something? Here, now I'm able to better prepare the unit for you. So not only actually, again, upon booking, but before they're booking, knowing their needs, upon booking, make sure that you're clearly communicating what it is that they can expect from your listing, right? And what they cannot expect. I think that's another piece as well. But then even furthermore, while they're at your listing, you need to make sure that you're periodically checking in, because some hosts also make the mistake of, once they get into the listing, it's like, all right, I got paid, I got your money, you got the keys, you got access, and that's it. But again, the example that I always like to use for you all is, think about when you are at a restaurant, right? And your server comes and you know she's great, she's got a great personality, she takes your order, brings your food out, but now your food's here and you might need ketchup, but she never came back to check in. So how are you going to know? How is she going to know, right? You don't have an opportunity. So now that then creates an opportunity for you to say, well, I mean, dang, like she came, but I didn't even see her before, and she came and brought the check and said, here, pay us. And now you are leaving a lower tip or even no tip because she didn't come and check on you. It's the same thing. They're both hospitality, right? You need to periodically check in. So just making sure, again, that before you're booking, when we actually look at what these messages look like in these 8 points of communication, you'll see that it's really anticipating what are they going to need upon their arrival. And then when they actually book and when they're there, communicating what they can expect, what they cannot expect, but even furthermore, ensuring that you're checking in so that any holes that may happen, like the good piece about what happened to Tina is that the guest actually reached out and said, hey, this is what we see. And it helps you to prepare better for the next guest. But even sometimes an opportunity for you, Tina, is if you were really focused on making it better for the guest, hey, go head to the store and go grab the tools you need. If you were really counting on grilling, go grab the tools you need, send us the receipt, we can reimburse you. And you know that it's not going to be more than about 15 or 20 bucks.
Yeah, I was thinking about that too.
Yep. Okay. So again, just knowing, when we're looking at knowing the needs of your guests prior to them actually arriving, prior to them booking, you need to be able to anticipate their needs. And this is why we focus so much on actually choosing a niche that you will serve. Because if you know that families are booking your place more than anybody else, you know that families might need a playpen. They might need some games. They're probably not going to like the fact that, you know, if you got all glass cups and wine glasses, that's going to be a problem for families because they got kids. They need some plastic cups and everything, right? Something that's not breakable. So you want to anticipate what they're going to need before they actually get there. We know that people who are traveling for work, they might need extra chargers. They need coffee. So if you do not have a coffee station, that is now a hole within you saying, hey, come to our place. We got high-speed Wi-Fi, but you don't have coffee or maybe even a desk. That then becomes a problem and another opportunity for them to write a negative review because you told me that it was perfect for corporate workers and now it's not. It makes sense to them, but sometimes we miss it. And then couples as well. This is one that I totally forgot when I started one of my units, the apartment units, them needing a wine opener. And initially when the first guest said it, I'm like, okay, they're just one guest. And then it got to a point where 2 or 3 or 4 guests had said the same thing. That's when you know there's now a hole in what you're pretty much saying that the guests can expect and what they're actually experiencing. That's where you're finding that hole. So again, this is why when you are making your listing details, and even furthermore, when you're communicating with them, you have that niche or that ideal guest in mind so that you prepared the listing the best for them. So that if a family comes into a listing where you said is perfect for corporate workers, they can't be mad that there's only glasses in there and there's not any games or there's not a playpen because it's not for that. And that's why we make sure to make that clear. If you make it clear within your listing, the guest cannot come back around and say, well, you don't have this. If you read the listing details, you would know that we don't even allow kids here. You shouldn't even have your baby in here. And there's no point for them to make. And then even furthermore, right, when we're looking at clearly communicating what they can expect, this is when we get into actually outlining the expectations, like in different places, and make sure, because some of you have asked, right, like, well, what if it gets like repetitive? You want it to be repetitive because people need, like the same way that they say you need to see something or hear something, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 times before you really get it. The same way is for guests. And especially if you are someone who you're saying your listing can hold, I don't know, 3, 4 people. At that point, that's a group of people, right? And you want to reiterate that information because right now you're only going to be communicating with the main person that books. So the main person that books can very well understand, hey, you cannot smoke in this listing. But if they did not communicate that to members of their group, now that is when you're having an issue. That's when you're going to have a problem. So we want to outline expectations in a number of different places. That first place is actually going to be your listing details. This is why I tell you all to fill out every single box or field that they have. Other things to note: how can you get around? What can you expect? Here's the little kinks that are a part of our apartment unit or our home that you can expect. Note that information within the listing details. And then even furthermore, once they actually book, you're reiterating that information. You're telling them to, hey, please go back and make sure you read the listing details before you actually arrive for your reservation to make sure that we are on the same page and we can provide the experience that you're expecting. So even furthermore, those 7 to 8 booking messages that you send, right, when they get there and during their reservation, which we're about to go through, but then even furthermore, aside from that, list this information in your house rules and your house manual as well. Again, another place for them to see it. So your house rules are what's outlining what you should not do, what they cannot do within your unit. Your house manual is what outlines what can they do, right? Like, how do I turn on this? Where is this? And how things actually work within the home. So that's the main difference between those two fields. But with your house rules, I always say to mention the most important things because there's actually a field when they are booking where it's almost a contract. Your house rules are nearly a contract for your listing because when they're booking, the guest has to see those listing details, and then it goes to a page where it says, in order to book this listing, you need to accept the house rules. That is them checking a box saying, I have thoroughly read and agreed to the house rules. It's pretty much that contract. So this now gets into the example of what I've given you all of saying, when I receive negative reviews from guests sometimes. There have been times where I've absolutely been able to get it removed because of my house rules and what I note in there, saying that, hey, if you experience any issues, make sure you reach out to us because we'll be able to fix it within 24 hours. And at that point, if Airbnb sees on the messenger, right, we say always communicate through messenger. If Airbnb sees on the messenger that this guest never reached out about the issue, like ever, and this is something that you also could not avoid, let's say that you have a leak within your sink, and then they just trying to put a bowl under there, and then they put it in the review that, yeah, there was a leak under the sink. It was terrible. It was very ghetto in there. You can get that review removed because you told them in the house rules, let us know if anything goes wrong and we can fix it. So any of those complaints are then going to be eradicated, right? And even furthermore, another example of that, right? Because I know I mentioned to you all as well, having a smart thermostat. And I've had guests complain that, well, hey, we can't change the thermostat. In my house rules, it says, please reach out to us if you want the thermostat changed, and we'd be happy to change it remotely for you. So if you mention that within the review, that gets removed as well, because you agreed to let me know when you were uncomfortable. This is why we want to make sure we provide a lot of detail within both our listing details and the house rules, because that's what's going to save us later. So again, list this information and what they can expect in all of these places, in the listing details, in the booking messages, and even furthermore within the house rules, because now they've agreed to it 3 times. And if you're also a person who you print out the house rules and have a guest manual in your unit, that's 4 times that they've now seen. There is no excuse for anything going wrong, anything being placed within a negative review, unless it's just something that's out of your control. So when we're looking at then periodically checking in with guests, you want to make sure that you're actually providing a heads up of any changes to their reservation. This is a really important piece, right? Or the unit in advance, so that you can let the guests choose whether or not they still want to continue their stay with you. It's a lot different if you show up to a place and you were expecting, let's say it's a high rise and you were expecting a really good view. If you get there and now you don't have that view because maybe it's something out of the host's control, to where there is construction going on right in front of their window. That is an expectation that you had. You told them that you have city views, and now they don't have that anymore. That is something that you absolutely want to let them know before they get there, so that you can manage that, right? And even furthermore, letting them know in an actual message, in a written message, saying, hey, we just want to give you a heads up that there's some stuff going on. They're doing some construction. So unfortunately, it's kind of blocking the view that we have of the city just a little bit. We wanted to give you a heads up just to give you the liberty of whether or not you wanted to continue your reservation. If this is not a problem for you, we'd be happy to still host you. But if it is, feel free to go ahead and cancel, and we'd be happy to provide you with a refund, depending on whatever your refund policy is. But that's something that you have to let guests know. And if it's something that like that, I would even include something like that in the listing details, so that those guests who may book with you, right, and then they book non-refundable, they won't feel slighted. If they book and you let them know, hey, we actually don't have this view, but now they've booked and they book non-refundable. Let them know so that they can make that choice, right? So if your cleaners are running late and now they'll have to check in late, let them know that, because for many of you, you're choosing a flexible cancellation policy. Don't try to make a guess or an assumption that, okay, well, yeah, check-in's at 3, but it's Friday, so they're probably not going to get here until 5. It's a recipe for disaster. Let them know before they actually get there. Is early check-in a possibility? Let them know. Is there something wrong and you're working to get it fixed? Will they not have access to something, right? There was a point in time where with one of my houses, we had bookings coming in, but then one of the guests completely knocked off the faucet in the tub, and we completely had to have it repaired. They had to knock down the wall to get back there. So one of the bathrooms of the 3 that we have were completely blocked off, meaning that they could not use it. We let them know that beforehand and said, hey, if you are all right with that, please let us know. If not, we can cancel your reservation. At that point, when you get there, you knew you had 6 or 7 people in your reservation. You knew that it might cause a little bit of an inconvenience. However, you agreed to it. We let you know and we provided you with the opportunity. So if they try to come around saying, well, we only had access to 2 bathrooms, we want a refund, Airbnb is not going to actually uphold that because you let them know beforehand. And again, all communication whatsoever should be done via the Airbnb Messenger platform. When these guests call you, there will be times when they'll try to call you at check-in and they may need some additional information on how to get in. That's fine. But I always say reiterate whatever you spoke about in a message after you get off the phone, as we just spoke about, so that they can agree and you have a paper trail, because that is really the most important piece with Airbnb. And now that I am at a point where I've jumped through so many hoops with Airbnb, I've made so many claims, I've gotten knocked off, suspended, gotten back on. This is really what's going to make the most difference with your experience as a host, because there are some folks who actually feel like Airbnb as a platform caters more to the guests than they do the host. Meaning that if a guest says something's wrong, they gonna run with it. However, the way that you cover your own butt is listing all of your information and having everything in writing. Do you have issues where people ask you for discounts because of stuff like that? Absolutely. 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 But yes, there's certain people who, if you say something like that, they're going to try to, okay, well, how can you accommodate me? Send them $40. Everybody like $40. Send them $40. I don't know. But offer some type of honestly, letting them know what can we do to make this right. Now, make sure that you use discretion with who you're asking this. This is when it comes in handy to look at their profile, right? You don't want to make judgments off of people, right? But just look at their profile. You'll know who it's safe to ask, what can we do to accommodate you? And other people who are going to say, well, you can send me all of my money back. That's a no. That's a no-go.
Do you ever give discounts?
I do. Absolutely. Especially if it's something where our team fell short. Like there was a time, for instance, our cleaners, rather than actually, I guess they had cleaned already, but then swept something else up and they stuck it in the trash. And it's something really petty, right? Like some people won't mind. They see something in the trash and it's like, well, it's the trash. It's fine. This particular guest was like, well, we see this stuff in the trash and it's making us think that, this place wasn't cleaned properly. Okay, now you're being difficult, but sure, I'll send you back $40. Yes, absolutely. But they are going to ask for discounts. And those people, like for instance, the example that Tina gave in the Facebook group, I don't approve those types of discounts. So Tina, if you want to brief, you eating right now.
No, you're fine.
Yeah, but brief them on what that ask was. That is a no. Do not do that.
I forgot all about that. So I got inquiry booking about a family saying that they had just moved to Texas, but they were staying in a hotel and they wanted to know if they could book monthly for a certain amount. They didn't disclose an amount. I don't even remember if it had a name. I really didn't have any other details, but it looked real sketchy. And my listing says I can only have 4 people in that unit. It's just a 1-bedroom, 1 bath. And he was saying that it was him, his wife, and 3-4 kids or something.
And yours isn't even 4 kids.
Yeah, at all. So
Exactly. And then on top of that, there'll be instances where they'll reach out like that. I've had people reach out oh my gosh, I'm in desperate need. Please, can we book this for, $1,000 flat rather than the $2,200 that you're asking for? No. No, because again, you do not know, and I will let you all know right now, there is a lot of scamming that occurs on the Airbnb app if you are not careful. Airbnb is doing a better job at it. So for instance, Tina, with you, when that came through, they sent a message saying, hey, do you want to respond to this?
Yeah.
It seems a little spammy. So they'll send things like that, but just make sure that in instances like that, that's an easy route that even if they were being honest, they could very well turn into squatters. You don't know what their situation is. And if you didn't have the money to pay my original price, I can't keep giving discounts.
Yeah.
In terms of sending them the money, you'll do it through the Airbnb app. So if you want to send or request money, you can do it right through the app at their reservation, and you can send money if something goes wrong on your end, or you can request money from them. If they damage anything, if you need to clean additional, whatever it is, you're requested through the Airbnb app. But don't do cash. I would say do not do Cash App. Make sure, again, paper trail, especially for Airbnb. Because when I tell y'all they will try to block you from the platform for a lifetime, my God. My God, I don't know what technology they're using, but any type of login you get, they are going to block you.